Hello there, everyone. I hope you're having a great time here at the inaugural edition of SharkBytes at USCB. My name is Dr. Brian Canada, and I'm an assistant professor of computational science here at USC Beaufort. If you're watching this video, then that likely means that you are now participating in the app design contest. Now, I imagine that many of you have at some point in your lives used a smartphone or some other mobile device that is capable of running so-called apps or applications that you can readily purchase from an online store like Apple's iTunes or perhaps the Google Android Market, now called Google Play. Now, I'd like to see a show of hands in the room to see how many of you have used a mobile app for any purpose, like gaming or Facebook or Twitter, or perhaps to help you with your homework. How many of you? Raise your hands, please. Okay, great. Now, put your hands down. Now, how many of you are interested in developing your own mobile apps? Doesn't really matter what kind. I just want to see another show of hands to see how many of you are interested in actually doing something like this, regardless of your level of experience. Okay, great. You can put your hands down now. And one last show of hands. How many of you have ever done any computer programming before in any form, whether we're talking about actually writing code or using some sort of visual programming language like Scratch or Alice or something like that? Okay, great. Now, put your hands down. It is true that the most common route to developing your own mobile apps is through programming or coding in a computer language that can be translated or what we call compiled into a self-contained application that is designed to run on your smartphone or other mobile device. Now, if you want to program for the Apple iOS platform, that is for devices like the iPhone, iPad, and iPod Touch, you would typically need to learn a language called Objective-C. If you've ever heard of languages like C or C++, Objective-C is very closely related to both of these languages. But not only would you need to learn the Objective-C language, but you would need to master a special piece of software called Xcode. Xcode is an example of what we call an IDE, or an Integrated Development Environment. IDEs like Xcode are a little bit challenging to use at first, but once you get used to them, you'll find that they can be very helpful in making sure you design your program correctly for your target device. In this case, we're looking at what looks to be like the iPhone or iPod Touch. Now, by contrast, if you want to program for the Android platform, the primary language you'll need to learn is something called Java. Like Objective-C, Java is also closely related to C in terms of its syntax, or which is just another word for grammar. And while there are a wide variety of IDEs that allow you to do Java programming, and in particular Java programming for Android, the preferred tool for Android is to use a software package called Eclipse, which you can download for free from the internet from eclipse.org. Now, Java is arguably easier to learn than Objective-C, at least that's from my point of view. And if you're programming for Android, you aren't completely tied to the Apple macOS platform for development. You can use both a PC and a Mac to program for Android, while Xcode is strictly a macOS program. And Objective-C is the main programming language for pretty much anything Apple related, whether you're coding for iOS or you're coding directly for like a Mac desktop application. Anyway, the main point I want to make here is that both Java and Objective-C are key examples of languages that allow you to do something called object-oriented programming. Now, without going into too much detail right now, object-oriented programming allows you to design your programs in such a way that you can model real-world objects and allow them to communicate and interact with each other in different ways. You can have them behave in different ways. But for today's activity, we won't actually be doing any programming. So for those of you who don't have any programming experience, you can breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief. No programming, no problem, right? Now, instead of writing code, we will be using a special piece of software, a special software package called GameSalad, to allow us to design our own apps, in this case, gaming apps, that follow the object-oriented paradigm, or the object-oriented way of doing things. In fact, using GameSalad may actually be one of the easiest ways to introduce yourself to the concept of object-oriented design, because your focus is on creating generic versions of objects called prototypes, which GameSalad more commonly refers to as actors, kind of like actors in a play. We give our actors attributes like color and shape, and we also give them behaviors, like how they might move or act in response to a user interaction, like pressing a key on the keyboard or moving the mouse, or a touch event on most common mobile devices, like tapping on the screen or swiping up and down or from left to right or in a circle. These are all examples of interaction events. Now we'll see plenty of examples of all of this as we make our way through the tutorial portion of today's app design contest. The point I want to make is that by using GameSalad, you don't really write any code. Nearly all of the so-called programming is done by pointing and clicking and dragging and dropping. If you know how to use a mouse and you can do a little bit of typing when necessary, then you've got the majority of skills needed to be successful at using GameSalad. Another thing that's great about GameSalad is that you can deploy or publish your games and apps to multiple platforms. You can publish to iOS, Android, Windows Phone, as well as your favorite web browser. This is a symbol for HTML5, which is pretty much a universal language for web browsing. Now, in order to sell or otherwise distribute your games in an app store like iTunes or the Android market, or Google Play as it's now called, you would need to join a developer program, and that costs a little bit of money. Now, we won't even come close to getting to that point today, so you really needn't worry about that. Our main goal for today is to learn the basics of GameSalad to create a very simple game. And then once we've done that, I will turn you loose for the rest of the 2-hour session so that you, either working alone or probably with a partner, can take that simple game to another level. You can make it look better, you can have it play differently, or some combination of both. And if you're up for a challenge, you can work on a different kind of game altogether. It's really up to you, but I would advise you to think carefully about what you can realistically accomplish in a fairly short period of time. So, like I said, this is a contest. We will be choosing the winners of the contest based on a variety of criteria. For example, how much further were you able to take the app that we started with by the time we're done with the tutorial, that is, and how creative did you get in the app design? Were you able to make it smarter in any way, or look better, or play better, that sort of thing? Of course, every good contest has a prize, right? Today you are competing for a Google Nexus 7 tablet. This is basically the Android answer to Apple's iPad mini, and I gotta tell you, this is a pretty nice piece of technology. It's valued at about $200, specifically $199, and it's a pretty nifty prize, so I hope you will take the contest seriously and do your best. If you do work with a partner, both of you, if you and your partner both come up with a winning design, according to our judges, then both of you will win a Google Nexus 7 tablet. It's not just one person in the room. So, like I said, hopefully you will take the contest seriously, do your best, and because time is limited, make sure you use your time wisely. So we're going to pair you up with a partner, and if you happen to know somebody in the room already and you'd like to partner with them, that's fine. Just make sure you're able to keep each other's eyes on the prize. The prize, Google Nexus 7 tablet. Now, there won't be much time for fooling around, so please use your time wisely. If you don't know anyone that you'd like to partner with, then one of us, those of us who are SharkBytes staff members, like myself, or if I'm not in the room, you can ask Dr. G or any one of our student staff assistants from USCB, and one of us will gladly help you to find someone to work with. In fact, let's go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so let's do that, and then we will reconvene and get started with our tutorial.